Welcome to another episode of Graceful Curiosity. I'm Henry,
I'm Michael.
and we are again on Zoom. I know some people made the comment, I like it when you guys are in person, but we promise. I feel like this episode, which also, if you're listening already, this may be an episode you want to watch. If you're normally an audio listener, this may be the episode that you change that up and be a video listener. Because
Mhm.
really, essentially, this episode is Henry and Michael's tour guide through the Book of Problem Prayer. You know, so, I mean, if you want to listen along and open your own Book of Common Prayer, that's okay. You can do it that way. But we'll be showing everything on the screen. We'll also be showing a neat thing called the Daily Office 2019. It's a website and app that will go through and show some of the neat features there as well. So I just think this is one that will, unless you have your own Book of Common Prayer, I think this is definitely one you might want to watch instead of listen to. Just putting that out there into the world before we really dive in, Michael.
Yes, well said. I think that will give the viewer sort of the maximum experience of of going through the book with us this week.
Yeah, and I thought maybe we could do this in person. Get one of those. I don't know if you remember these from like college, Michael. Like when your professor would have one of those video overhead things and they would have a book
Yeah,
and it would go to the screen. We could have totally done something like that. You
yeah, that's true.
know. Because those have an HDMI out, so I could have hooked it up to the recording and everything. So it would have worked out.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe our next book tour we do, we'll employ that.
Well, first we have to have the budget for them. I don't know how expensive they are.
Uh,
If we're only getting one use out of them, I think the Zoom is definitely a better option. I think
gotcha.
overall. I think you know.
Um,
Uh, we're a podcast with no budget, so that's the joke there, people.
right.
So, but I think this will be fun. Michael and I both have, I think, a bit of experience with the Book of Common Prayer itself, like using it so in our daily lives and everything like that. So we hope we can impart wisdom, whether it's from me being a cradle Episcopalian to Michael, actually gets to participate in presenting the liturgy in different forms and fashions. So we just hope our insight can kind of make this turn into a really cool resource for you. Because I think it is a really cool resource that we as Anglicans sometimes take for granted. I think since we usually, at least in our day and age, most of the time the liturgy's on the screen. Some of our churches, like at Grace, the reason why we don't have a bunch, I mean, we have some in the building, but we just don't have a bunch because yeah, it is expensive to get one for 212 seats, you know,
Sure.
you know. So, um, but what I do like about the ACNA is we've made this thing so accessible.
Yes.
So we will have the links to both the PDF and the uh, Daily Office 2019 in the description of the video and the comment section. So you'll be able to grab that afterwards. Or if you want to follow along, you can do that too. So, but at the same time, we said everything's going to be on the screen. So just real quick housekeeping, then we'll get into it. Michael, sound good?
Mhm.
Every Wednesday, 12 o'clock. You can find us on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, uh, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. If you're wanting to watch this in the video form, the places you can go are either Spotify, YouTube, or Facebook for today's, if you're wanting to see the visual component of today's tour. Um, and we just appreciate any comments, any likes, shares, any of that. It helps grow the podcast, and we greatly appreciate it. So, with that, Michael, let's see if I do this right. We will share my screen. I hope I did all the right things, that the recording records the screen as well. So, here we are, the Book of Common Prayer. Um, and you can see there's a lot of fancy titles going with it. Kind of just explaining everything there. Uh,
Mhm.
and of course, we have what everyone needs in their life, a copyright page. So, but more importantly, let's get to this page, the table of contents.
Mhm.
Uh, so everything's broken down into different sections, as y'all can see here. From the first section, we'll be going through is the daily office. Um,
Ooh.
then there's a thing called the Great Litany, Holy Eucharist. That's what we do every Sunday. Those are all the services through the Holy. That you have the baptism and confirmation services. And then you have the more pastoral rites, everything having to do with wedding, with adoption of children's to different kinds of healing services to burials. Uh,
Mhm.
we have this thing called the Psalter, which we'll get into that a little more, which is just a way of putting the Psalms together. Episcopal services, that is a fan. If you don't know, here's your new word for today, um, is that Episcopal is the system we as Anglicans have in how the church is run. So, which that means we have a system with a bishop. So that's what Episcopal means. That's where Episcopalian comes from, or the Episcopal Church comes from. They didn't just make up a random word to not be part of the Church of England anymore. So they use the title of the system. So all of these are different liturgical services that the bishop himself runs. Then, of course, we got Holy Week and Lent. We have collects. We have calendars. Um, we even have some historical documents as well. So it is jam packed with a ton of stuff that we'll kind of navigate through. So, with that, one of my favorite parts of the Book of Common Prayer, Michael, is
Mhm.
just these little tidbits. I know in this case, this is a preface, but like we've read a couple of them as we've discussed different topics, right?
Yeah.
In front of confirmation, in front of Ash Wednesday, so on and so forth. I love these little like tidbits of kind of like introduction, if you want to put it that way. I think this is a touch that they kind of added for the 2019 Book of Common Prayer, which I think is a very nice touch, especially for people that aren't used to it and aren't used to these services.
Yeah, I think a lot of these little sort of historical introductions provide that sort of context that might be missing from other editions. And as you were saying there, it sort of gives a perfect sort of entry point for people who didn't grow up with the Book of Common Prayer or aren't accustomed to things like the liturgical calendar. It really kind of situates all these services in this rich history, right? That the Book of Common Prayer comes out of. So that's definitely got to be, I think, one of the most useful features of this 2019 version that the ACNA has produced.
Yeah, and it's kind of like just adding a commentary, essentially. Like we have commentaries to Bibles, we now have
Mhm.
commentary pieces. So yeah, so you can read. We're not going to read through it, but I just think I wanted to point that out because it is a neat thing. It's also in some form a letter with our two found, the first and second archbishop
Right.
when this was launched. Uh,
Hmm.
so and there's also so you can see there's a bunch kind of just going into the overview of what everything is. Now we're getting to the daily office, which is the first part. And I think it makes sense that this is the first part outside of, the intro and the preface and all of that. It makes the most sense that this is the first part because this is the thing that happens, the liturgy that should be used the most. So
Hmm.
it makes sense that it should be first.
Right.
So what is the daily office, Michael, when we use those words?
Yeah, well, we touched on this a little bit in our intro, but it sort of represents the Anglican form of this custom of praying throughout the day at different intervals that really had begun sort of early on in the church and had been become a very well established tradition through the Middle Ages and onwards. And the daily office sort of represents the Reformed Anglican expression of that great tradition. And in particular, right, it offers us prayers that are to be used, as we said, different at different periods of the day. In particular, a daily morning prayer, a midday prayer, an evening prayer, and even this sort of late evening prayer called Compline, right? That is sort of the concluding prayer of the day that offers Anglicans or any users of the prayer book this just incredibly rich set of prayers and readings and reflections that you can pick up whenever you have the opportunity to engage in. And as we sort of described last week, right, it's just an incredibly enriching practice to insert into your daily life this profound experience of time with God. And it is structured in such a way that you'll encounter different elements of scripture, different historical prayers, of course, confession of the creeds, the Lord's Prayer, just all the essential expressions of the Christian faith articulated in ways that are accessible and deep and profound. And again, just incredibly useful to you as you're going about your day to be able to access these different engagements with the life of faith.
And the cool part is if you do them all, because they're not all formatted exactly the same.
Correct.
And I think that's a cool part of it that you don't have, you're not saying the Lord's Prayer in every single one, or you're not saying the Creed in every single one, that they're kind of, situated in a way that as you complete the day, you'll have said all these things. And it kind of creates this separation of, not repetitiveness, but kind of completion. What's also cool is, this is where, especially historically, church bells came in, at least in the Church of England,
Mhm.
or like, when the colonies with the early Episcopal Church, or any of the other, British colonies, like before real electricity, before smartphones, before most people could afford a watch on their hand, like
Mhm.
the church bell would be ringing off most of the time for okay, it's next daily office, come in,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know, and kind of, because we have daily morning prayer was kind of the start of the day, and then it would end with Compline, because I always look at Compline more as it's the bedtime. You could change it with bedtime prayer, because
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
the language in it is really about us going to bed,
Hmm. Hmm.
and resting. So
Yeah.
all these are different centered, midday prayer speaks into it about the continuance of the day and being able to continue the day. So it's kind of cool because really I believe it's morning prayer and evening prayer were kind of before the Anglican Church were kind of really the two daily offices, and it really expanded with the Book of Common Prayer uh,
Mm.
to more of the hours. Um, so it's kind of cool that things were shaped in that way. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to go through all. We're not going to go through all of them, but I kind of want to show you if you're going to do this on your own, some rules that will be helpful. Right, Michael? I think it's good to know
Yeah.
a couple things. So whenever you see or this, so you see these three verses, or this means usually choose one of these threes to begin. So it's kind
Correct.
of like choose your own. That's the big thing you're going to get out of this is choose your own adventure. Uh, is a big part of the daily office. So it doesn't mean, I mean, if you want to read all three, you're more than welcome. But
Mhm.
usually when you see an or this, that means choose one of these. Because maybe you want to change it up. You go and you do the first one on Monday, the second one on Tuesday, the third one on Wednesday. Because these don't change based on the day of the week. These are always there for morning prayer. And the same
Mhm.
thing, there's similar things, of course, in all the others. Um,
Mhm.
so officiant, most of the time, at least from my experience, Michael, is either you're doing these prayers by yourself, so you are the officiant. Or
That's it.
if you're doing it in a group, there's not always clergy.
Mhm.
So whoever's just leading it, you now have the role of officiant. So
Right.
it's so you're kind of picking a role, which I think is also cool because we, especially as laity, we don't get a lead liturgy as much. So this gives us the opportunity to practice that, which is really cool. And like when I do it with my students, it gives an opportunity for all my students to lead, and that's kind of a cool experience for them to fall in love with the liturgy. So that's kind of a cool feature of the daily office.
Mhm.
So wherever you see efficient, you'll just have to pick. Everyone else is going to be people, but you'll need one person to kind of lead. But also there is some cool features as well. So you can either go really like this is another example of the or this. You can go the very long one, or you can just go really short.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
kind of the fun things. But there are some other things there's added things like here's the priest part, where if a priest is there, he can provide an absolution, but it's not necessary. So if
Right.
it's just a bunch of laity, we can just confess together. But if a priest is there, they can provide absolution. So I hope you're already seeing that there's already a lot of versatility with the daily office, which I think is really cool.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's very well said, Henry, because we can see by looking at these different configurations that the prayers can take that it's really it's intended to maximize its usefulness to you, right? So in occasions where it's more formal or you're meeting in the church, it can be led by a clergy member and you can read some of the extended prayers. Or if you're at home by yourself and you're in a time crunch, you can use the abbreviated forms, just as you were pointing out there. So the book is really meant to make itself as accessible as possible for the most people as possible. So that's just a wonderful feature, as you were saying.
Yeah. So you need to kind of see as we go. Um, it continues on, with the different ors. Um, it doesn't say. Well, there it does say or this. I forgot if it did not. So like these are the psalm readings, or they're a version of a psalm reading. Um, and you can choose how you want to do it. You can do it if you see these little stars. These are helpful because some churches like to do half verse for psalms. So the
Yeah.
stars are there to help you if you want to do half verse. So it tells you where the half verse is, or you can decide because of the how the start of each sentence and the indentation you can do by whole verse. So it kind of helps based on however you do it as a group. Um,
Right.
you can choose which way you want to do it.
Hmm.
Um, Also, you can see here that, and this is with some of the Psalms as well, is that certain parts are omitted because when we're in different parts of the church calendar, like I think a good example is with music and a worship service. If you ever notice, none of the worship songs during Lent talk about the resurrection, like
Yeah.
holding back the resurrection
Hmm.
or the celebration at Easter. The same thing is with this liturgy; it's holding back based on season to gear it towards which season or kind of in, and sometimes it adds things because of it. So
Hmm.
um, this is used. I can never pronounce these Latin words, of course, but this is specifically for the first week of Easter. Um, you know, so and we'll get into the calendars at the end. There's calendars at the back where you can figure out what's the psalm of the day, not the song, because these ones up here. What's cool about these is these can be sung if
Yes.
you want, or you can just
Mhm.
say them. If you want to do some Anglican chanting, you can.
Mhm.
That's available to you. It's really up to you and how the style of worship you want to do. And then a normal psalm is just it can be sung or said as well, whatever is appointed for the day. And then the lessons as well, which we'll show you later on where all of that is, where you can find that. And you can choose. That's the cool part. You can do one lesson or you can do multiple. Like Michael said, if you're scrapped for time, you can do one lesson. But if you got all the time in the world, you can do all the lessons. So it really
Mhm.
gives you that versatility uh, of how you want to do it. So, um, and you'll also see this. This is also an interesting thing with the falling verses may be omitted. That's another thing. If you need to shorten things, there's places in here where they are shortened if you
Right.
need it. So, we weren't lying when we said take your own adventure. Uh,
Mhm.
the other thing is you can see the Benedictus, the Benedictus es Domine, and I'm not going to try to pronounce that one, Michael.
Te Deum.
Te Deum
Mhm.
Laudamus. You don't have to do all three. You can do because it doesn't have an or this on here.
Right.
So you can kind of choose how you want to do that as well. Um, we have the Apostles' Creed, um, which you'll notice with like at least in art with different kinds of services. We focus or special times we do the Apostles' Creed, but also the office usually does the Apostles' Creed over the Nicene Creed. Um, Also, in the prayers, you can choose whether you're going to be how you want your Lord's Prayer. Do you want to be, do you know what you want your these and thous, or do you want just the
Mhm.
more modern? You can also choose, I want Lord have mercy on us, or just saying Lord have mercy? Um, so you kind of have these options here based on how you want to do it.
Yeah.
So then the collects for the day, you could do as many. This is what I find fun, Michael. I don't know about you, because you can preview it ahead of time. You can see all these collects. Have a designated day. There's
Mhm.
their suggestion. You can pray
Right.
all these collects if you want. If you have all the time in the world and you feel like I just need renewal of life, peace, grace, guidance, that all sounds good for the day. You can, if you want to, you can do all of it. These are all
Mhm.
just kind of suggestions. So if you're truly adhering to the daily office throughout the week, you can make grace be the center point of Wednesday or
Mhm.
so on and so forth. So it's up to you. And there's also, we'll show you later, there's other places for other collects that you can always bring into the daily office as well if you like.
Mhm.
Like here's the prayer for mission. Well, this is just the prayer for mission. I was going to say it's not the collect for mission, um, but you have options there. So, um, general Thanksgiving, prayer of Saint John Chrysostom, um, and then on this one, it doesn't say it, but I always like to, you can also, with these last verses, do, or this, pick your one, or if
That's
you
right.
want to do all three. So that's kind of, if you see here, these are some special openings. If they're on all of these, usually after, so this is, we're now done. Like this I realize you can't see me pointing. So I got to do it later. So you see here, this is the end of morning prayer.
Mhm.
After daily offices, they have these special things for special notes. Like if you want to change the opening sentence for this, for all of Advent, you know, or we're
Hmm.
in Epiphany, different seasons. Um, they give all these extra options are at the back of all the morning or after every prayer. And all of these special, pending if there's a special day like All Saints, Trinity Sunday, Pentecost, like all these when there's special things. Um, they also have additional instructions if you need them as well. Uh,
Hmm.
so you have all of these options, and this is just going to go through all of it. Um, and I realized I didn't write down the number for a cool feature. This is on the spot podcasting. I guess that would be hold on. It's going to be right before this. So there's a cool feature I want to show you. Uh, we're doing this in real time.
So
Uh,
actually, well, while you're finding the next subject there, I was going to comment real briefly on the beauty of the having the different collects for each day of the week.
yeah, go for
When you get into the practice of engaging with daily prayer on a daily basis, and you become very familiar with each unique collect for each day of the week, you find that you really appreciate those prayers, especially for their uniqueness and for their substance and content. So much so that I think it's inevitable, right, that we sort of develop favorites among
it. Yeah, yeah,
the different collects. And so it's interesting how you will come to look forward to praying specific collects that you might find particularly meaningful for you. So just the very fact that we have that variety that is designated for the days of the week, I think is like a special treat that you have when you're engaging with the daily office. It's just that additional little prayer that you can treasure as you become more and more familiar with each one.
yeah. So the cool feature I want to show you, this is a 2019 exclusive, and that's this idea of family prayer.
Yeah.
Um, and as you can read in the first sentence, it's talking about it's appropriate, especially for families with young children. This is kind of like a tool to be used to help start the practice.
Hmm.
They're um, extremely short. And they're also named different. So, family prayer in the morning. You know, I'm showing
Hmm.
you how many pages we got here. We're done. It's 2 pages.
Yeah.
And it's only that long because there's or this,
Hmm.
for this. So it's just an opportunity to help get into the rhythm of morning prayer. Especially, I have a couple friends that use this with their children, that are like toddlers to 5, 6, 7. And sometimes it's hard to get them to sit there for the full like 15 minutes of morning prayer. Where
Yeah.
these family prayer can be like 5 minutes.
Hmm.
So it's a good way to introduce this practice of liturgical life into the life of your family. That's their primary purpose. The other thing is like I usually recommend for students if they want to get into the daily office, start with family prayer because that helps you get into the rhythm.
Hmm.
And then once you feel like I can take the training wheels off, we'll go to the next level if you want to put it that way. It's it's
Yeah.
it's a good way. It's also I think it's a great tool if you are rushed for the day, but you're like, I need this.
Hmm.
Doing in the morning family prayer instead of completely skipping out morning prayer just because it's the rush of the day, I think is better than doing nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really helps if you're strapped for life or strapped for time. It's a
Hmm.
great tool that really just distills everything down and keeps the similar format, just makes it a little tighter of an experience.
Right. And I actually remember reading a testimony of one family who was just being introduced to Anglicanism and the use of the prayer book. They had begun going through family prayer basically right before everybody headed out, right? Right before dad went to work and mom took the kids to school. They would take those 5 minutes to read it together. And the family, according to their testimony, found just this little 5 minute time of collective prayer right before going off to work and school. They found it life changing. And so, just as you were saying, Henry, it is quite literally the perfect introduction to beginning this sort of practice of daily prayer. And people who have begun this process really have seen the effects that it's had in their lives. And it's become incredibly meaningful to them as this introduction into daily prayer.
So, Michael, here's the next question. Because you'd think daily office, next thing is probably the Eucharist, because that's the thing we do the most. But we have this little stop adventure, the Great Litany. What is
Yeah.
this, Michael? What's a litany?
Yeah, well, this is this really interesting and fascinating set of prayers that the structure, if you're familiar with the the rather the Sunday service, it has a structure that resembles the prayers of the people, right, in certain ways. But it's this unique collection of prayers it can be used in certain instances right before the Eucharist, but it's also something that's used in on special occasions, particularly the first Sunday of Advent or the first Sunday of Lent. I've most seen this associated with the sort of introduction to the Lenten period,
Mhm.
but it raises just the whole host of human needs before God and requests His assistance in pretty much every facet of human life, every facet of our growth and development. And it's incredibly comprehensive for just these few pages that this litany covers, and just articulates all our needs and desires and our beseeching of God for His assistance and granting us peace and mercy in just an extraordinary way. So it's probably one of the most unique features, I think, of the prayer book that is brought out, particularly on these special occasions, right? But which we also have access to any time that we have the ability to devote ourselves to it.
Yeah, and there's multiple different litanies. It's kind of like, in a way, just like a call response type of prayer. Uh,
Exactly.
and there are a bunch of different ones. There's a Thanksgiving litany as well, deeper down in the pages. But I think it's a great thing. I do it sometimes with my students when we're kind of doing something along, like when we had our youth worship night last month.
Mm,
I use the Thanksgiving litany as kind of a part of prayer in between the songs we were singing, as kind
uh,
of like to set our hearts, because the songs that were coming up were about Thanksgiving. So it was kind of a
mm,
way for them to center themselves before they started singing.
mm.
So these things can be used in a bunch of different ways, and it's an interactive form of prayer that we can all do in unison together,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So that we would say, like, this is a especially participatory, right?
Yeah.
Just as you were saying, right? Anyone who's engaged in a prayer, we're all going through this together. It requires that call and response, just as you said. So it's one of the more especially participatory prayers in the book.
Yeah, and also it can be sung.
Mm-hmm. That's
I've
right.
been to a couple high churches, or like a diocesan synod one year. We did
Ah,
the
okay.
litany was sung. It felt
Mm-hmm.
very awkward since it was the first time I experienced it, but it can be sung as well, in the Anglican
Yeah,
form of kind of a cappella chanting, you know.
right.
So it's very versatile in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but from there, do. Oops. No, we're still in the Great Litany. I always forget how long the Great Litany is. Um, This is one I should have just put. Then we go on to the Holy Eucharist, which, if you looked in the table of contents, there's two versions. But first, it does have an introduction to explain both the differences of the versions, also explaining Eucharist and the tradition of the liturgy itself, which is always cool. But you'll see there's Anglican Standard and Ancient Renewed.
Mhm.
Um, so there's two versions of the Eucharist service because of that, which is it's simply based on the usually most divide can be because of hi- higher church and lower church, or just it's all about the language that's used. One's more traditional, where one of it's more modern.
Mhm.
But you can see as you walk through, because on the screen, at least like at Grace, here's the opening acclamation. You don't
Mhm.
get to see the whole, which one do we use?
Yeah.
It's already chosen for you. And that's kind of a cool part of going through the Eucharist service.
Mhm.
In here, you get to see some of these ancient names, like the Kyrie. Um, a lot of these, if you see these words and you're like, what the heck? Most of them are Latin words. So if that's helpful for you guys.
Yeah.
And you can go through and you can see the actual names, going back to our Eucharist episode. Like there's a purpose to this order.
Mhm.
Um, but you can see, just like as we went through the morning prayer, how everything is set up. And then from here, like that's how we pick and choose when we're making the slides. We have our own separate Word document from this that has everything we do and more of like us picking the
Mhm.
adventure, you know. So,
Right.
but it's a way for you to kind of look at it and kind of see, because that's the beauty of it is like the word common, like we talked about last week, is like it's in the hands of the people to actually see what all the words of the Eucharist are. It's not
Yeah.
so it's not something that's just hidden or kept apart, but you can explore it.
Exactly, exactly. That's right, one of the key reformational principles that Anglicanism embodies, right? That the Holy Eucharist is in the hands of the people, in the language of the people, accessible to the people, right? Rather than a sort of exclusionary sort of language and an exclusionary access, relegated only to the clergy. It's for everyone to experience and understand, most importantly, right? Being able to have the liturgy of the Holy Eucharist before you allows you to engage with all the elements of prayer that are in it in such a way that it's so much more enriching, right, than if you were to simply be a bystander and witnessing the clergy perform this in the way that was more prominent in the medieval church, right?
Yeah,
This allows the Eucharist to be completely in the hands of the people themselves, which is a beautiful thing.
yeah. Then from there we get into baptism and confirmation, uh,
Hmm.
which these, like we've talked about before, these are always done. That's why they're next. They are always done in a Eucharist service, always done on a Sunday. We don't do it unless there's, someone's on their deathbed or something like that, like
Sure, sure.
extraordinary circumstances. But for tradition, we do them in community. So
Hmm.
they take parts. So, of course, they have an excerpt of kind of the theology of baptism and what you know
Hmm.
everything is, but these would slide right in to the Eucharist service. um and there's instructions in here to take apart different things. uh like this is the opening acclamation for it, and so
Yeah.
whatever season we're in, this gets replaced. um and you have special collects, you have special a whole tons of different things. But my favorite part, and what I think the most important thing is you get to look before the service starts. So if it's a week, month, whatever it is, you can
Hmm.
actually look at the vows.
Hmm. Hmm.
they're available for anyone to take a look at. Specifically for the confirmation service, I love doing that with my students ahead of time, before they actually have confirmation. Be like, let's go through all this. Do you agree to all of this? Like, does this
Hmm.
make sense? You know what you're agreeing to. The same thing with like godparents, and parents, because we do infant baptism in the Anglican Church. Uh,
Hmm.
so you're able to look at all of this. Also, it's kind of cool. The Apostles' Creed gets turned into a vow,
Yeah.
uh, as well. So it's even you get to see how some liturgy is reshaped for the specialness of the service. And also you
Hmm.
can see what it's like as well if, the different type of candidate you are. Are you a baby? Are you an adult? There's all these different things that you don't think about when you are in the pew,
Yeah.
for a service. Same thing with like confirmation. I can show you. Oh, hold on. We're getting confirmation. Here we go.
Hmm.
Confirmation. Um, we have the different. It's different based on whether you're being received or you reaffirmed. All these different things are in here. So it's all really cool that you can just go through it and explore it, before the service, before you're agreeing to anything, or maybe you're exploring it before you're deciding whether should I do confirmation or not?
Hmm.
Before you sign up for those classes, you want to kind of see what it's all about. You know?
Hmm.
So it's kind of cool that you have all of this
Yeah.
available to you.
Yeah, and even more significantly than that, right? These liturgies for baptism, confirmation, etc., are just so incredibly rich, right? They're in so many ways paraphrase, very large portions of scripture, etc. But just the theological depth that these liturgies possess as it relates to baptism or confirmation is something that is worth reading just on its own, right? For your own personal study and devotion and enrichment. It's interesting how, every time that I am present for a baptism or a confirmation, etc., I learn something new each time, right? Or there's a new facet of the liturgy that I appreciate in a new way, or I've overlooked something that now sticks out to me this time. These liturgies are just so theologically substantive that it is incredibly rewarding to go through these and experience these time and time again. And as you're saying, having these in the actual book allows you to sort of delve deeply into the rich substance of all of these sacraments and other occasions of the church.
Yeah, and it continues on into the pastoral rites, which is everything from, you know, marriage, holy matrimony.
Hmm.
Um, you can go through the different, how the service is structured and everything like that, to all the vows that are happening there, uh,
Yeah.
to like we talked about, with there's healing portions in here too. There's also for dying and death itself for the funeral. So
Hmm.
that's what all these pastoral rites, it allows you to take a look at, like, this isn't just something that we come up with on the spot, but
Yeah.
it's something that's been in tradition for centuries, and it's something that, you know, everyone that's died and had an Anglican funeral, all the words have been said the same, right?
Yeah.
Everyone that's had an Anglican wedding, they have all taken the same vows. It goes back into that idea of, you know, past and future church, everything combining together, which is very
Hmm.
cool. I think so.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So then we're moving on to the Seltzer. Um, so the Seltzer, this kind of idea is uh kind of, you can see, like, at least with our Seltzer, I love this kind of part where it gives you the numbers for just about, like if you're looking for certain subjects, which I think is
Mhm.
awesome. Because sometimes we're like, I haven't read all the Psalms, but I could really use one about God being our refuge right now. And you can
Right.
go and you're inserting it into, if you go off
Mhm.
reading or something like that for morning prayer, you're like,
Yeah.
I really need to feel like I'm in the midst of God's wings and being protected by him. So I want to go read Psalm 4 today for my morning prayer psalm.
Mhm.
So it gives is a pretty cool tool that I like a lot. But also these psalters, it's formatting the Psalms for liturgy. Is
Mhm.
that is that a good way of putting it, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
And to be sung.
Mhm.
Every psalm that's in the Psalter can be sung in an Anglican chant form. So words here and there are changed. So, it doesn't sound like someone's trying to breathe because it's so long, or, the just how things are sung and the syllables of everything. It makes it easier. In a similar way, the idea comes out of, hymns were made so the common person could sing.
Mhm.
So the Psalter comes out of that same idea. We aren't all master musicians like David, who wrote most of the Psalms, right? So
Mhm.
it helps the average person while still keeping the exact same idea and same, thing. It's just helping divide it up and make it easier to say um, as a church.
Yeah, and I would suggest too that the way that we have the Psalter organized here is a a sort of return to the original use of the Psalms, right?
Yeah,
We're sort of, post Reformation and post the printing press and and all that. We're accustomed to reading the Psalms, right? Especially in the Protestant tradition. But the Psalms were liturgical documents, right? They were originally intended to be sung, to be the heart of Israel's worship of Yahweh was to joyfully praise God through these psalms that have been written over the centuries. So the way that they appear for us here in the Book of Common Prayer for use in the liturgy is, in a lot of ways, a return to the way that the psalms were used in ancient Israel, which
yeah.
I think is a really neat and a beautiful feature of the prayer book.
Yeah, and I just wanted to read this, just kind of give people an idea. I have Psalm 1 up in the Bible real quick. So, like, verse 1 is in the ESV is, Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor
Mhm.
stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. So,
Mhm.
blessed is the man, as it says in the Psalter, blessed is the man who has not walked in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stood in the way of sinners, and has not sat in the seat of scornful. Like, it's not changing, like it's the exact same meaning. It's just structured, like we said,
Right.
to go back into the initial. Also, the Psalter does not have allegiance to a translation as
Mm.
well.
Mhm. Mhm.
Even though most Anglicans use the ESV, it's not, it's a lot of this is pulled from old Psalters as well, ones that
Yeah.
were written
Yeah.
off the King James version, or even Bibles older than that, or you know
Mhm.
and it's developed more like a hymn book than
Yeah.
than a Bible.
Mhm.
So it's a neat thing that, like you said, Michael, I think that's a good way of putting it. It's bringing them back to the ancient form of Israel,
Mhm.
how they intended to use the Psalms, which is really cool.
Exactly. Mhm.
It's also the longest part of the Book of Common Prayer because it's all 150 Psalms. So,
That's right. Mhm.
um, so then we go on from the Psalter, we go into the Episcopal services. Like we said, Episcopal is a name for the system, for a bishop led system of the church. So these
Mhm.
are liturgies that only the bishop can do. And this is where you have ordination services, especially. So, if you've ever been curious, whether it's from the consecration of a bishop and himself, or priests or deacons, you just want to explore. It's a cool. I mean, for most of us, this won't affect our everyday life, but it's just a cool thing to explore. It's like it's not a hidden thing. Like going back to the other ideas we've talked about, it's not a
Exactly.
hidden thing. Everyone can take a look and see what are the vows that the deacons are making. What are the vows the bishop is making? You can
Hmm.
look at all of the different things. And it is very much structured in a similar way to confirmation, baptism, to the Eucharist service, kind of a blending of all of that into one thing. So it's just a neat feature that we can explore ourselves.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And then, because the other thing is, perfect timing, Michael, that it is next week, but we go straight into the special liturgies for Lent and Holy Week. So,
Hmm.
whether it's Ash Wednesday, that's very different, and
Hmm.
how it's done to the procession of, the palm, out in front.
Yeah.
Uh, all these different services, whether it's Monday, Thursday, and the stripping of the table at the end, it just gives us access to these special services, so we can compare and just see like, oh, we're not just copying pasting for Holy Week. There's actually like there's no like, for example, here I'll go back up real quick. We're not just picking whatever's on the calendar. No, every Ash Wednesday we do Psalm 51, the
Yes.
Psalm of Repentance. Like, this
Hmm.
service is structured in this way, where this is something important that on this day every year that we read together to remind us as we're entering the season of Lent. So
Hmm.
is and to the Passion reading and stuff like that. Because like an interesting one is Palm Sunday. Um,
Hmm.
and you'll notice this was an interesting thing that I learned about years ago, because we read the Passion reading on Palm Sunday. Why don't we
Yes.
just read the entry into Jerusalem, right? Well, the
Hmm.
idea comes from, what if someone doesn't attend any of Holy Week services and just does from Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday? Because Easter Sunday, the resurrection is read.
Hmm.
So they need to hear the Passion. So there's like little things like that that kind of when they originally, and this is a thing that's been deep in Anglicanism for a long time. So, the people that are writing the Book of Common Prayer really thought about these things, you know, um,
Hmm.
which is really cool. I think it's neat.
Absolutely.
That we have this intentionality in these services.
Hmm.
Uh, and you should go look at them yourself. Or maybe you, because of our video today, you're now going to pay attention closely, as on Sunday, that's when Holy Week begins, you know?
Yes. Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
the other cool part. There's an explanation before each of, that's the other thing. There's a cool thing you can do, Michael. Before Holy Week, this upcoming Holy Week, read the introductions and each of the services for the Book of Common Prayer.
Absolutely. Yes. Hmm.
Uh, because how many of you know this is why Maundy Thursday is called Maundy Thursday?
Hmm.
That's just a weird name, right? We get Palm Sunday, we get Good Friday, Maundy Thursday. What does that got to do with anything?
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly, exactly. Isn't that and that's so useful that the prayer book has these, little, again, as we said, these little introductions that help us understand what's going on, right? That, yeah, I mean, I had actually forgotten as well the exact origins of the term Mondi, right? From mandatum, or the word that we usually hear, right? Mandatory, mandate, right?
yeah,
And referring to the Lord's command to love one another in John 13:34. So, yeah, that's just such a useful tool to help us understand where our customs and traditions come from, and how they are just such an important part of our celebration of Holy Week.
Mhm. So that's just a cool thing you could do this year. Something
Mhm.
different. Change it up, you know? So yeah. So it has all of them all the way through Easter that you can take a look at. Then oh, this is the one thing I don't like. So here's an interesting information, friends. Because this is basically the print form, like this PDF is basically the print file. That's at least what it seems like. So they're just
Yeah,
random, they're for the printer
blank
where there's a
pages. Yeah,
blank pages. So it's
that's
always
right.
funny. You find those. But here we
Mhm.
go to probably for me, this is the most used section for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, because I when I do daily office, which will show it, I use the app because
Mhm.
I can do it from anywhere. I don't have to carry around the Book of Common Prayer, but that's another thing for another time.
Yeah.
But you can explore this section. This is where you'll find all the special collects.
Hmm.
So, like on Sunday, if you've noticed, we never, for the collect section, which is what's read after we do our worship, our first set of worship, and it's different based on what Sunday it is. And that's where this is. All these different ones. You can see it changes from Sunday to Sunday or special service like Christmas Eve. Um, and the word collect is really just shorthand for collection. It's a
Yes.
collection of prayer for that day.
Hmm.
Um,
Exactly.
so, this is the collection, and, this is a collection of thought for Christmas Day because the Lord has been born, right?
Hmm.
So, it comes from this idea. So they change over and over again. The other thing is, as you explore, um, as well, it kind of helps you learn the church calendar and kind of the pacing of the weeks, uh,
That's right.
the readings. So, and the other thing is, there's nothing, if this is for the sixth Sunday of Epiphany, if you really love this one, you hear it on Sunday, well, you can put it in your collects as you read during that week,
Hmm.
to kind of set
Yeah.
your mind on that.
Hmm.
So that's, that's the cool part of choosing your own adventure. We're not strict in Anglicanism where you can never use the collect again. So, um, it's really cool that it's centered around because if you see as I'm scrolling like this for the Transfiguration, this is here we go, Ash Wednesday, then we're going back into Lent, um, Passion Sunday, um, then here comes Palm Sunday,
Hmm.
like over and over again. Then the Holy Week itself, for your morning prayer, midday prayer, whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
you can do a special one for Holy Week. So it's just really cool. You can explore these things. There's a ton of them. The thing is, what's also cool is not, most of these were not written for the 2019 prayer book. These are
Yeah.
taken from older prayer books. Or at least, some of them are new, but I mean, like, these are ones in church history that we've been saying for decades, centuries, however you want to put it. So,
Exactly.
so it's
Hmm.
really cool. Um, then my favorite section, I recommend this to a lot of people. Oops, that went ahead. Uh,
Spoiler alert.
I know. Um, wait, now I'm just getting a colics. Okay, well, I guess there's not a direct break for um the occasional prayers. They just continue going on. I forgot if they did, but these are so the colics blends into the occasional prayers. These are prayers you can do for their prayers for life circumstance more than
Right.
a collection of, like, they're not geared towards liturgical days, but circumstances you're in.
Hmm.
And that's where, you get these for a pastor, for a missionary, teacher of the faith. Like, these aren't towards a specific, you know, thing. For a renewer of society.
Yeah.
You see on and on. Well, there's the thing I was looking for. Okay, here we go. This is what I want. So if you can see, they're all broken down and numbered,
Hmm.
um, which is kind of cool. So I know they're set up. The table of contents was set up. I talked to someone who is on the team for formatting this. They wanted it to be with occasional prayers because they're so specified. They wanted it easier to find. So it's not following a church calendar per se,
Right.
like the collects are. So,
Hmm.
you know, we got an election. We need a prayer for an election. We need, you know, for the unrepentant people in your life, or you're unrepentant yourself,
Hmm.
there's a prayer for that. Specifically for different things in your family, for your own personal devotion. The other cool thing, Michael, you see these names, these
Yeah.
prayers that people have written, and we've talked about good old John Wesley.
Wesley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We've talked about Thomas Aquinas and Francis of Assisi. Like these people, these are ancient prayers that are in here in the occasional prayer,
Yeah.
written by some of the fathers of the church, which is
That's right.
also very cool.
Hmm.
Neat little ad. It's not just some random thing. So
Hmm.
I think it's a cool little feature. And you can see also, they're not taking too much of your time. They're the size of a colic mostly. So
Right.
but they're straight to the point 'cause sometimes we don't have words. And this is a
Yeah.
great place to find words
Hmm.
because we don't know how to. You're like, I don't know what's going on in this nation, but we got to pray. It gives you an opportunity to just pray for this nation, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
or you just want to pray for unity in the church because you don't feel like all the denominations are really unified. There's
Hmm.
words for you to say. So it's neat. I think it's a neat little tool um, that I love personally.
Yeah, I do too. I find the occasional prayers to be some of the most meaningful prayers in the entire book, right? Because they cover just the whole spectrum of human life, of whatever adversity you're going through, whatever situation you're in. I've prayed the prayer for a sick child many times whenever my kids have gotten sick, or prayers for just absolutely any sort of situation that one can think of or be in. The church has collected these beautiful, elegant, prayers of, as you said, giving you the words when you might not have them on your own. And it's just, again, one of the most profound resources that the prayer book offers us.
Yeah. Then we come to the calendar and the lectionaries, which I we alluded to earlier. Um, this is what you'll use for finding the readings and everything like that, and kind of know what's going on. Uh,
Hmm.
and it kind of it explains in there kind of how to use it,
Yeah.
which is a nice little tool as well. Because if you think about it this way, the first Sunday in Advent is kind of the start of the church calendar.
Right.
So once you line that up, which you can use, which is there's easy tools like I always like to remember count 4 Sundays back from Christmas Eve.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
That's usually how I like to do it. You can kind of, and from
Hmm.
there, um, you can kind of figure it out. Oops, I am scrolling too fast. Also, what it has on there is if you want to celebrate different holidays or remembrance of different people, it has
Yeah.
all these extras. Or in the church calendar, um, the circumcision and holy name of our Lord Jesus Christ on day 1 in January. You can do that.
Hmm.
So it kind of helps you get through all of Jesus's life and the life of the church. Also celebrating martyrs or people, great people of our faith,
Yeah.
a bunch of different ways. Um, as you can see through, certain days are dedicated to different people. It doesn't mean you have to, but it's kind of cool to remember, you know, different people. This is like, for example, Martyrs of Japan. Uh,
Hmm.
this is when Japan decided we don't want Christians anymore in our country. and the whole country shifted when the country was on track to be majority Christian. And then the
Right.
Christians slaughtered a lot of the Japanese that were Christian.
Mhm.
And this day is a remembrance of them because they didn't renounce their faith as they
Yeah.
were being tortured and killed.
Hmm.
So a lot of these things are really, um, ways to remember. Like here's Martin, good old Martin Luther right here.
Hmm.
We all know that guy. Uh,
Hmm.
so it's a nice little tool to maybe reflect on Christ's life, reflect on different people in the Bible. Like here's Joseph.
Hmm.
That's what the 19th is about of March.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just a neat little tool that you can do to kind of focus on that. Here's MLK. Uh,
Hmm.
so I'm trying to get down to the lectionary because that's more important, I think. Because if you don't know how to use the lectionary, you can't figure out what passages you need to do for the day. So, but my PDF reader is being a little slow right now, so I'm buying us time, Michael.
No worries. But yeah, I was just gonna say it's so amazing that the calendar has this both biblical figures, Anglican figures, and ecumenical figures. That's such a wonderful feature that it has, that you can actually see not just the great heroes of Scripture or the great figures in the history of Anglicanism, but just the global church as well, right? People who have meant so much to the spread of the gospel and the Christian faith around the world. That's just a beautiful feature of the book here. And I was just looking, you had picked out a few figures as well. I'd noticed even Billy Graham appeared in the February 21st section there. He had passed away in 2018, right before this version of the book was published. So that's just an amazing feature of the text.
And one of your all-time favorites is about to appear. I'm going back. Oh, wait, where'd it go? There we go. Right there on
Ah,
the
yes.
29th of November. Good old Clive.
Absolutely.
Or for people that don't
Absolutely.
know, that is C.S. Lewis right there. He's remembered
Exactly.
on November 29th because he's
Yes.
under the Anglican branch right there, which is really cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, no, that's really cool. I didn't notice that, Billy Graham, because, yeah, that would have been right before this would have went to print.
That's right. Hmm.
So that's very cool.
Hmm.
So then comes the table for finding out for Easter. And if you look, it's kind of impressive how far they go.
Yeah.
We're going in, we're going into 2120, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. So uh, that's a
Yeah.
cool little tool.
Mhm.
Because, that's the difference. That's one of the big things is Easter kind of runs with Passover and also where Christmas Eve, what day of the week it is on,
Right.
affects completely how the rest of the calendar lines up.
Hmm.
So
That's
that's
right.
why the date is ever changing.
Hmm.
And here's another one, table for finding movable dates. So like, Pentecost is never the same.
Hmm.
Ash Wednesday is never the same.
Hmm.
The beginning, here's this for the beginning of the calendar with Advent. Which Sunday does Advent, start on? So it's how this is used.
Hmm.
What day is Easter?
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So, and then from there, you can use that to go across the table to figure it out. So,
Hmm.
um, and sometimes it's weird. Like, you got a late April 10th, a late Easter, but then
Mm.
we have the earliest of Advent, for example. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just how it all works out. So you can figure it out. Um, oh, and it keeps on going.
Hmm.
Trying to be nice to this thing, but it's not going super fast.
Yeah. Well, it is a massive document as far as PDFs
Here
go.
we
So
go. This is what I wanted. Okay. So here's the lectionary. Uh,
mhm,
so our lectionary runs on a 3-year cycle. With the main idea is you should be able to read everything in Scripture if you stay on the 3-year cycle. You'll complete the Bible, as they say.
right. Mhm,
So here is for Sundays to kind of, um, for people that are making things, but because this is going slow, this will continue on to like the normal days as well. So if you're using morning prayer, this is what you would use. So page 717, you go back to the back, and the lectionary will show where everything is, what's the reading for that day, which is a useful tool because you know it doesn't. It would be a longer document, Michael, if we
mhm.
gave a day for every. Like we made morning prayer for the first day for the second day. I mean,
Yes, it would be. It would be. It would
write
be.
a 10,000 page document.
That's exactly
It's
right.
already at 812. So
Right.
if that gives you all anything.
hmm
So, and there's 50 from here, there's 50 pages on the lectionary. So, if that gives you all an idea of it goes into the depth of what the readings are for each
hmm
day, each. So, you can go back there. That's how you can find it, and that's how you navigate it. Now we're going on, Michael, to the last, we're nearing the end. And this is kind of a cool section that I don't think we use enough, but it's kind of this thing's slowing. I've just noticed this thing is just slowing down the further we get into the document. So
It
so
is.
these are a bunch of documentaries that are documents that can
hmm
be just found back here. You have everything from the 39 articles to the Jerusalem Agreement, um, to a couple of the different creeds
hmm
that we don't normally use outside the Nicene and Apostles. These are
Yeah.
all just like documents that you can peruse on history. This was the foundational or fundamental declarations of the province of the ACNA.
hmm
You know, so you can find all these things at the back. It's a nice little tool to kind of you can just peruse kind of the temples of our faith, as Anglicans, as modern Anglicans,
hmm
looking back at the history that we have. So it's a cool little section that anyone can use.
Yeah.
Um, so it's something you can explore on your own, kind of read through. Um, so it's just a cool little thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these documents here at the end of the book are really, some of the most significant expressions of Orthodox Christianity in the, 2,000-year history of the church, all collected in one space for the benefit of the reader here. It's just incredibly useful. I mean, I can't recall how many times that when I was curious about, well, what is the Anglican position on, X, Y, or Z thing? And consulting the 39 articles to find, a concise, brilliant explanation of, whatever the doctrine or whatever the issue may be. It's just an extraordinarily useful addition to the book that in the realm of Christian publishing, right, you can there's entire separate texts for these documents here that are not inexpensive, right? But the compilers of the 2019 prayer book have put all of that together in this one text for our benefit here. So that's just an incredible resource. That is a sort of a bonus feature, right, of the 2019 book that is just an awesome, useful tool, as you said.
Yeah. So, yeah, then we just completed it, as, It just shows you how long of a thing it is
Mhm.
that the PDF reader was failing near the end as we were in the 700s. You,
Right.
you know, it's just a lot of pages. It was
Mhm.
doing fine in the beginning, but by the end, it was like, I'm tired, guys.
Yeah.
You know, so, but I
Mhm.
do. Oh, it's here. So, okay, there we go. So, this is the other tool we wanted to show you, and this is
Yeah.
dailyoffice2019.com. Uh,
Hmm.
of course, I have it in dark mode, the only right way to do it. Um, but this is a cool little thing. First, I'll show you this. You can play around, but you can go and look at the church calendar you can explore it. Um, so you can see the different days and everything like that. Um, but the coolest thing is this. It has the whole daily office. It pulls this, like, probably the most important thing for you guys at home is I just passed it, didn't I? It pulls the readings for you
Hmm. Hmm.
and the Psalms and everything. Let's do morning prayer since midday prayer doesn't have as many readings. So
Hmm.
that's a bad example. But like morning prayer, look, it's pulling Exodus for you already.
Yep.
And it's pulling Matthew, the second lesson
Hmm.
of Matthew for you. It's just
Hmm.
it's pulling, it's a neat tool that a bunch of people came together to just make everything easier.
Yeah. And
You-
it's made choices on those sections that you have a variety of options for, right? In the
yeah.
different prayers. It's selected one for your convenience and just compiled a sort of ideal version of each morning, midday, evening prayer, etc.
And it's also cool, like, so this is evening prayer. Um, it has tons of collects already pulled that are possible for that day. So
Hmm.
being Tuesday after the first Sunday in Advent, or it's just regular Tuesday, or
Yeah.
because it's the eve of the Annunciation of our Lord Christ, the Virgin Mary, like it pulls them all for you that are
Hmm.
possible for this day, which is just a really cool thing. I think it's a neat tool that someone put together. The other thing is you can advance. You can go advance. You can change text size. So if that's too small, you can make
Hmm.
it bigger. Um, you can also do family prayer. So you can switch it over to family prayer, and it's all assembled for you as well.
That's
So
awesome.
it's very cool. And the other thing is, I think when we popped on, it was on midday.
Hmm.
It knows what time of day it is. It'll automatically when you open it. So if I opened it at 8 p.m., it'll be on Compline,
Right, right.
automatically. So that I
Mhm.
think it's just a cool tool. It's completely free. You can support them over here. We're not sponsored or anything by them. I just think it's a great tool that I've used a lot.
Mhm.
Um, so you can support them. Also, if you just want to know all the daily readings for the day, you just hit daily readings, and all of them that are going to apply to the day will pop up. So
Mhm.
if you just want to, so maybe you want to use your Book of Common Prayer, but you don't want to search through and figure out what year we're on or what have you. You just want all the readings pulled. But I rather do it on a physical book. This is also a great way to use this tool too. You can change the service, you can change it to something special, you can change your translation, you can
Mhm.
do change your Sulzer. That's just crazy to me.
Yep.
You would change it to the style. Are we saying all these in unison? Half verse, whole verse? Where are your
Mhm.
prayers?
Mhm.
It's just really cool. It has all of this versatility for you guys. It is a very neat tool. Um, I don't know if I've noticed this.
Oh, God, make speed to save.
There you go.
Michael, that's fantastic. So I didn't know they added this.
Yeah.
Um, it can read it to you, do the officiant. I'm assuming that's what
Wow.
it's doing is the officiant
Mhm.
voice for you. Um,
That's incredible. That's
the,
incredible. Wow.
so the other thing that's cool You don't have to
Mhm.
go to the website. Both of you have Android or Apple. They have an app in the
Mhm.
App Store. So whether it's on your tablet, whether it's on your phone, you can download it and use it. It's the same interface, but instead of going to a website, it's just at your fingertips. Really
Yeah.
easy. So it's a really neat tool for anyone to use. It's highly customizable. So I don't want to say it makes a Book of Common Prayer obsolete. It just makes it a lot easier to press into the daily office liturgies, especially for us, here in America. We're constantly on the go,
Right.
so it's such a useful tool. That it makes us. It's not like we all live in back in the 1600s. We all live in the same village, and it's easy to walk to the church all together when noonday happens.
Mhm.
This
Mhm.
actually allows us to, you know, wherever we are. You're taking your kids to soccer practice, so you're doing evening prayer as you're waiting for their practice as it's going on.
Mhm.
Or you have a morning commute and you ride, the bus. You can do midday prayer on your phone as you're getting to, you know, and with it reading for you, you can do it in your car. You can just play it on your car in your morning commute. So it gives
Yeah.
all this versatility, which I think is a great tool for us as we're trying to stay centered on God and the busyness of our lives.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I can't tell y'all how many times I've used these having these digital resources. I've been able to engage in daily prayer, even on my lunch break at work or in the car on the way to work or whatever the case may be. They're just extraordinary things that can help us put ourselves in the presence of God, no matter where we are or what we're doing. It's just an amazing thing.
yeah. So Michael, is there anything else you want to say about our tour?
Yeah, well, again, I think, I hope we've made this a little more accessible to everyone, especially if you're coming from a tradition where you're not accustomed to that, or you're just not familiar with the book itself. I hope we've been able to show that anybody can jump in at any time, at any level. There are so many ways that you can utilize the book to just change your life, right, and deepen your relationship with God. And it is, as someone who did not grow up in the Anglican tradition, who had to learn to use the prayer book in just the ways that Henry and I have been describing here, I can just attest that it is one of the most valuable uses of your time, on a daily basis. It is something that is just a priceless treasure for us to grow in our sanctification. So if you haven't yet been exposed to the Book of Common Prayer in this form or in the digital form, it's never too late to dive in. And so we would strongly recommend you all to give it a try. And especially as we're about to enter into Holy Week, this is the perfect time to delve in.
Yeah. And if you don't have, your normal time with the Lord, reading
Mhm.
scripture,
Mhm.
the daily office can become that where it's already, because I know for a lot of people, it's hard to be like, what do I read? Where do I
Mhm.
start?
Mhm.
So with the daily office picking passages for you, it's a way to take away that intimidation. And when you get to the reading portion, you can just like pause the rest of the daily office, read the passage and reflect on it, then move back into the daily office. That's always something I recommend with my students as well.
Yeah.
Just it's this prayer surrounded through your Bible reading. So that's also you're like, I don't know what to pray for as I'm reading the Bible. So it also just kind of it's a way to take away so many obstacles
Mhm.
and hopefully
Right.
benefit your life. So with
Exactly.
that, I've been Henry,
Michael.
and we'll see you next time.